Hello, y'all. Dana Lee here, coming to you live for another episode of Freedom Fridays with Dana Lee. We are all here together on Fridays to create more freedom in our lives around food, our bodies, exercise, just feeling our very best. When we feel in certain areas, there's a lot of restriction, deprivation, denial, we're beating ourselves up. So, my intention with these episodes is that it gives you a new perspective, a lighter way to look at a situation around food or your relationship with food that has maybe left you feeling really heavy and stuck. So I'm happy you're here. If you're here with me live, say hello. I was away in the Dominican Republic last week. My husband and I spent a week vacation there. We have friends who recently moved there and are building a home, and we will definitely be back to visit them. And this vacation was very relaxing. We stayed in an oceanfront condo. We had a kitchenette, so we were able to get food and cook breakfast and have lunch and relax a lot and hang by the beach. I actually didn't work out at all. I know some of you are like, did you work out? Or you have those kinds of questions like, what does Dana do while she's on vacation? Sometimes I do work out. I brought my workout clothes with me, but I just didn't feel compelled to do that. I was like, I just really want to relax and unplug. And that is what I did. That's what we did. We also celebrated our 16th wedding anniversary, and we had a lovely time doing that. So here we are back in action and back for our regularly scheduled programming. So today I'm going to talk about food plans, because this time of year with us going on vacation and the weather is getting warmer, it can heighten our sensitivity about our bodies even more. And the tendency then is to try to diet, restrict, find a food plan, change the way we're eating. And that is all, honestly, it's innate in our culture. This is like what we do, right? This time of year, spring training, go on a diet. However, if you're part of my community, we're also trying to figure out and navigate this thing called diet culture that has held us back. And if you have been dieting for more than 10 years, then this is going to be specifically for you. This video, I'm going to talk about 3 things that you want to have part of your food plan in order for it to ultimately be successful, and not like any other food plan. Notice I say food plan and not diet than you've tried in the past. Okay. So if you are here live, say hello. I just quickly pulled me up on Facebook here to make sure I can see comments that come through. I don't always see them in StreamYard. And if you're on the replay, please hashtag replay. I want to know your eyeballs are on this. And if you have any questions along the way or things you want to share or comment on, I always read the comments even after I go live. So if there's any follow-up questions or something you need clarity on, please let me know. That's why I do these for my community. Okay. And then just real quick, if you are following me on YouTube, make sure that you subscribe to my YouTube channel. And if you are in the Life Beyond Dieting Facebook group, I'm so happy to have you part of this community. It is amazing, the conversation and support that goes on, even while I was away, even while I unplugged from social media for a week. It's just a really beautiful community of women truly supporting one another. I have not had to put rules into my community, and I absolutely love that about you ladies. You are mature, responsible, you're conscientious, so I have not had to put any rules in our community, which is like kind of unheard of, right? Okay, so let's dive into our topic for today. So I want to talk about the 3 must-haves in any food plan in order for it to be successful if you have a history of dieting for 10 years or longer. So that is key, because if you really haven't been a dieter and you're looking like something's happened with your health and you're looking to change how you're eating, the way you approach food is not going to have as much baggage and anger and restriction and all these rules and history that would come with somebody who has had decades of dieting. So there's a lot of pattern, a lot of cycle, a lot of gaining weight, losing weight, on again, off again. With all of that history, that is we have to approach how we're eating completely different. Okay, so you may want to take notes for this one. Of course, any of these Freedom Fridays could be writer downers at any given point. So, of course, if you're driving and listening to this, just mental note, no writing and driving. Okay, so let's just dive right in. So they're actually the three parts. Are all like a broad stroke of the framework that you would want to have if you are going to work with any, I don't care if it's a dietitian, a nutritionist, I don't care what it is. If they're not addressing these things and how they're approaching your food plan and how you're changing your eating habits, then I would say there's a big red flag. Because I'm going to preface what I'm about to talk about with, and if you've been following me for a while, you might have heard me say this before, a huge fault, flaw in our fitness and nutrition industry is that the only thing that is really addressed is the physical part of our humanness. And the truth is, there is a mental component and an emotional component, also a spiritual component of who you are. And the problem in getting healthy is that most plans, most professionals will completely negate, to not even include our mental well-being and emotional well-being, or think about running a spiritual thread through all of that. And that's a major problem. Okay, so what I'm about to share is part of how do you go about changing some physical things? Well, you've got to bring in the mental and emotional stuff. All right. It just has to happen in order for it to be long-term success. All right. So, number one is that we have to be clear on the type of life we want to be living. It's not just the body and the body shape, it is so much more than that, because you're so much more than that. Why do you want to change your food habits? I'd love to hear from you in the comments, whether you're with me live or you're watching on the replay. What would be a motivation for you to change your food habits? Like how you're approaching food on a daily basis, whether breakfast, lunch, and dinner, snacks, habits around food. Like, why exactly do you want to change that? So that's a portion of you may say, well, because I want to lose weight and I want to feel my best. However, what I want you to really think about is you showing up in an integrated life. So if your food plan or whoever you're working with does not include an entire vision, a map to actually see where it is you want to go and how that fit, healthy person you want to become fits into an integrated life, then this is one of the reasons why a diet or a food plan isn't working or hasn't worked in the past, because you must begin with the end in mind. All right. So that's why number one is having a vision, a clear picture of who you want to become. And not just like physically as far as your shape and your health is concerned, but what about how it fits into your family life? What about your value system? What about your career? Those components must be in play. Otherwise, the motivation for why you're changing your food habits won't stick, because you don't have that end game in mind. You don't have that clear picture of like, oh, that's what's important to me. That's how I want my life to look. And I can't tell you how many times I will talk to other fellow professionals and they may do goal setting with their clients. That's not what this is. This is not a goal. This is a vision for how you want your life to look. So putting it down on paper is taking that to the next level. So you can think about it and dream about it, but it also can be fleeting. So what I have my clients do is there are actually 3 different exercises I take them through in the second module of our work together. And it pulls apart and has you look at how can I project myself forward and see myself in all these capacities of how this is going to fit into my life. How do I see the picture of a healthy life, not just my healthy body and how I strive to physically look, perhaps, but also how you physically feel and how you feel emotionally and what are you thinking in this new life that you're creating. Otherwise, if you don't have that vision and that picture in mind for the broad stroke of where you're headed, you will constantly be in a circle, in a circle, in a circle. You're in a holding pattern because there is no way for you to tell the universe. This is where the spirituality comes in. Tell God, tell the universe, this is my intention for how I want to be living my life. Help co-create this. Help take me there. Okay, so this is why it's number one, and it is something that is overlooked so many times when I talk to my fellow professionals. They just don't include this. You think food plan, and it's all about, well, this is what we're eating for lunch, or this is the time we're going to eat, or whatever it is. It's like all these rules around the food itself, yet totally missing out on, wait, why are we even doing this to begin with? How does this fit into my ideal life of how I actually want to be showing up for my children and showing up for my coworkers, or if you're a manager at your job, or, the wife that you want to be? That has to be your number one. You've got to create a picture for that. Okay. So, all right, you guys with me? All right, awesome. Good to see you guys. Hello, hello, my live viewers. And of course, hello on the replay. All right, so this brings me to number two. So if we're projecting ourselves forward to see how is it we want to actually live our life, to give us some direction to go towards, to continue when we feel like we're getting off track, that's where we're headed. It feels like I'm getting off track, but ultimately you won't go so far out of the way when you have the vision for what it is you really ultimately want to create, right? You'll be able to get back on, and instead of the squigglies going like this, maybe they're more like this, because you ultimately know where you're going. So if you know where you're going, you must know where you came from. So I started this video and started talking about this topic specifically around dieting and women who have been in the throes of dieting for over 10 years. So if that is you, then we have to look at the history of what that's looked like. So many times I see new diet plans out there, new food plans, and people are jumping on the bandwagon, but there's no assessment, no look at what your unique history has been in your relationship with food, in your relationship with body weight, in your family, and in our culture. We have to excavate this. We've got to dig into our past a little bit, which I know can be really uncomfortable. It's like, I don't want to look at that. I don't want to go there. If you are avoiding looking at that, then you will continue that holding pattern. Okay, so you may have a vision for the future. Like, okay, Dana, I got it. I understand where I want to go. I know how I want to look and feel. I know how these elements of my life. Yet there's no, you're not giving yourself the ability, because it really is about giving yourself permission to look back on where you came from so you can understand it. You can have compassion for it. You understand why you made the decisions you made, why the behavior showed up the way they did in food and exercise and self-abuse in some ways, and boundaries and blurring those boundaries with others. We've got to look at the past to really have an understanding of the things that we need to remove in order to create that future picture, that life that we're pulling ourselves into, because otherwise it won't pull you into the future, because you're going to be constantly dragged back by the past stuff that you haven't yet dealt with. So anytime you work with a nutritionist, a dietitian, anyone on changing your food behaviors, if they're not asking you questions about your history with food and body and how you feel about yourself and what that looked like in your family, then big red flag, huge red flag, because it's going to continue. You're going to continue to get pulled back by those patterns if you aren't aware what they are. You're like, okay, or I know I'm doing this. I understand I'm sabotaging again, but you don't even know what to do about it. The way you give your power back is that you look back into the past. And I have methods to do that with my clients that are, I'd say, less scary. So I make it a much more curious, more inquisitive, lighter experience to find out some of these connections from behind me where, okay, that's why I did that last week. That's why I did that a month ago or 6 months ago. That's why I continue to do this. Now I'm starting to see. And that's why I say if you've dieted longer than 10 years, because in my experience, it has taken that amount of time for the painful patterns to start to show up in your mind, where you can actually look back and say, oh, wait a second. Okay, so this happened in 2005. And then, this happened in 2008. And then I saw that this happened in 2011. So you're actually able to like put some patterns together that will start to make sense. So you can then find a more profound understanding of yourself. And when you have that, you have the power to make a different decision. And that is really exciting. Okay, so hey, Sindhu. So she said, I never had a nutritionist ask me about my past relationships with food. I'm not surprised. They just wanted to fix me though, through diet. Yeah, and that's why I want to talk about this with you guys today, because it's important for you to know when you're hiring a professional, a dietitian, a nutritionist, when you really want to focus on your health and your well-being, if they're not having you do this, huge red flag. I would hate for you to just throw your money out, because it's going to create the same holding pattern again and again. So thank you for sharing that, Sindhu. And I'm curious too, anyone else, have you ever worked with a nutritionist or dietitian who's done these two things so far? A clear look into the future, integrated life, and then how do we excavate the past of like digging down and figuring some things out and mining for that gold, because there is gold in there. There is absolutely gold in the past, even if you've been like resistant to it. So this brings me to number 3. So if we have the future and we have the past, what's in between that? It's our present moment. How are we navigating now? How are we making the choices now? So the important thing is to have the emotional support. You can have the trackers, you can have the spreadsheets, you can have all the gadgets, you can have your Fitbit and your Apple Watch and all the things. And yet, if you don't have emotional support to understand, what am I thinking? How am I feeling? What is it I'm feeling? What's really going on here? If you don't have the support to navigate the emotional stuff, then the best food plan, it will just fall apart, because we're driven by our thoughts and emotions, until you start to do the excavating and the work of like digging down to understand like, okay, maybe I am not my emotions, and I can create a little space and a little separation so then I can think clearer, and then I can better understand and get in tune with my body. So these 3 elements, critical. They're critical. Honestly, I mean, even if you haven't been dieting for 10 years, I still think these are important elements to include in any food plan. Anytime you're going to change the way you're eating, maybe you just found out you're pre-diabetic. Maybe there's some other digestive concerns, and you're like, okay, so now I know I'm forced to change how I'm eating. Even in those situations, having the clear vision of the future, understanding your patterns of your eating in the past and how you were taught to look at your body, your health, and to navigate those food changes now emotionally, so important. So really, even though I'm specifically speaking to women who've been dieting longer than 10 years, I think that it is still pertinent for someone who is just starting to wrap their head around changing the way they're eating, because they've come up against some other catalyst of like, maybe they're afraid, like, oh my God, now this just woke me up because I now have a health concern. Or maybe someone close to you, like your mother or aunt, had recently passed away from something that's like, oh my God, now this health issue is hitting home. Like if I don't clean up my act, that could be me in a few years. Especially if you're like, okay, I'm 45 years old. Like, oh my God, like I know somebody, like, my husband's father, for example, had a heart attack when he was like 43, his first one. So that was it's like can be very eye-opening when you start to put things in perspective like that. Like, oh my God, I'm the age at when. And then that could also be the catalyst for change. For some people, it's enough of that awakening to really just decide from the inside of like, this is how, again, this is how I want to live my life. I can see like, okay, this path of like destruction and illness and disease, or take my power back and I can go on this path. And this is the quality of life that I see for myself and I want. So regardless, even in that, you can see those three elements, right? The future, the past, and then how you're navigating right now and the choices you're making right now. So those are the three. And I am really interested to hear what you guys have to say, and even on the replay, in your experience with working with a nutritionist, a dietitian, how you're changing your food habits, how you're healing your relationship with food. And if you'd like framework, more solid framework to put this into play, I'd love to have a conversation with you. The first step, now I have a 12-month program, and it takes you through step-by-step in these modules, and it's self-paced, and there's lots of support along the way, the emotional support, not just from me, but from the community of women in doing this work together. That's the other thing, is like having that tribe so you don't feel so alone navigating all this. Super important. But the first step in that is, let's have a discussion. Let's talk about some of these things that maybe you've never talked about before. With anytime you tried changing a food plan, you sign up for this online food plan, and then they're not really digging into the mental or emotional well-being of who you are. So that's something I'm very interested in having a discussion with you on. I want to know those things about you for sure. And therefore it makes it a little easier for you to even hear yourself talk about them and work through them, and then start to put some of that into play for you. So you don't have to be in that holding pattern again and again, repeating the same cycle, right? That dieting up and down and back and forth. And, it's got such a grip in our society, right? So, and you're welcome. Another good one. Thank you. Thank you. So I'm going to throw my, yes, paste. Oh, no. Okay. So let me try over here. I try to copy my, my link for my mindset questionnaire ahead of time. And then over a certain period of time, it starts to, I guess the interwebs just say, nope, sorry. Too much time went by. We're not going to keep that. So here we go. So this is a link to the assessment. It's the mindset questionnaire that I have everyone go through before we talk one-to-one. The reason I do this is that it is makes our time so much more valuable if I get that background information from you. Okay, so I'm pulling that immediately before our conversation. I want to know what makes you tick. I want to know what brought you to, hi Madeline, what brought you to this point in your life. So I have some questions on that assessment, on that questionnaire, that is even eye-opening for you. A lot of times I'll have women tell me that they're like, hey, I'm just in answering these questions, it gave me a lot of breakthroughs and ahas of like, wow, I never really thought about that before. I haven't had to get clear on that before. So there you go, right? Already starting the process. So I would absolutely love to have a one-to-one conversation with you, and of course talk about my program. But if the program's not right for you right now, or just not a right fit, I'm going to be honest about that, because it is definitely, we come together for a mutual decision on that. Don't even worry about like, oh my God, I don't want to book the call, I'm afraid she's going to sell me. None of that happens. I've been doing this a very long time. None of that happens. It is meeting you where you're at. I want to listen to what's been going on, where are some things you've been hung up, and then show you that path of like, ultimately, this is what you want. Well, here's how I'm going to show you how we're going to get there. Where's the gap between where you are now and where it is you want to go? I help you fill that in step by step. I have a process, and it's tried and true, and I've put dozens of women through it, and they have come out with their lives changed and feeling much more confident in their own skin, feeling more secure in who they are, having clear boundaries, being able to speak up for themselves, not getting pulled into diet culture. They're able to see what it is. So they're like, okay, I don't need to participate in that. Oh, that's what's going on. I don't need to participate in that. It's very powerful. And I would absolutely love to have a conversation with you. And if you're on my YouTube channel, just make sure that in the description, I will throw that link for my mindset questionnaire if you'd like to set up a one-to-one call. I'd really love to talk to you. Truly, it would just make my heart sing. Okay, so that's it for our Freedom Friday. I hope you got a lot out of today's topic, and we're able to take some notes. I always love to hear feedback from you guys. If there's something else you'd like me to talk about in our Freedom Fridays and unpack for you, please make sure you can comment on this video. You can send me a message. You can tag me in our Facebook group. Say, Dana, I'm really struggling with this. I don't really understand this. Can you talk about this in more depth? I would be really happy to do that for you, because I can almost guarantee if you've got a question or you're feeling lost, that if I share it with the community, there's other women who will raise their hand to say, you know what? I was secretly wondering about that too. I don't completely understand this, and just looking for another perspective, because maybe you feel trapped in your mind and cycling over and over and over in a place that you feel stuck when it comes to food, exercise, your body image, all of that stuff. All right. Thanks so much for tuning in today. Love you to pieces. Mwah. And I will see you in our next Freedom Friday. Bye.